Hey guys, it's Yoshi. Sorry it's been a year or two since I've done a video. Really wanted to do an LS video swap series, but I just don't have a lot of time these days, so making the YouTube videos is a little bit hard. So I figured I would go over the LS swap as a whole. I get a bunch of questions, people asking how I do things and what parts I use and stuff like that. So I figured I'd give a quick little walk around. Just everything about the build in general, not just specific stuff. So let's get started. Okay, well, first thing is I'm running a little bit unusual of a front suspension setup. These are the Fortune Auto 510s, digressive valves. I forget the spring rates. I think it's like 8 in the front and maybe 12 in the back, something like that. But the interesting thing about the setup I'm running is, if you notice, this isn't the regular e46 setup. This is actually an OBD2, like a 1998-99 e46 M3 front knuckle with the SLR kit. The idea behind that is that it has more caster trail, so it's better for self-steer. So I'm running the 98 M3 brakes up front, which is about the same as the stock 330, so it's not really that big of a deal. I don't know if you can tell, but I am kind of running into issues where I'm rubbing the wheels on the front. Wheels on the front are the e46 M3. I think these are 18x8s, and the rears are the 18x9s. Currently running a Kenda, was it KA20R or something like that, 235. This is just a temporary tire that I'm running because Nate Chen had it lying around. Thanks, buddy. Rears are really interesting. Again, the Fortune Auto 510s, so the spring's still separate from the shock. But the cool thing is, on the back here, I don't know if you can see, but that's I purchased it from Big Duck Club. I forget the name of the actual kit, but it's a dual caliper bracket setup. So I'm running the e46 M3 brake caliper, and this one I believe is the E39 5 series caliper. The hydro setup is stainless steel braided lines run all the way around to a adapter on the back for AN fittings. I'm running a 2 psi residual pressure valve, as you can see here, and the Committed Service brand brake handle, which has done pretty good. I welded a flat bracket to the drive tunnel, and it bolts on from there. And then this goes back, splits in the back seat underneath there, and comes back to each caliper. The unfortunate thing about this kit is you have to do away with the factory e-brake, so that's a little bit pooey. I wish I could still have the factory e-brake, but whatever. Running the factory differential, can't really see. It's the M3 364, 362, something like that. It's technically a VLSD. It's not the best option, but for what I've been running, it's been doing pretty good. Let me see. I think that's pretty much it from a basic standpoint. Lee Alexander at Alexander Fabrications did an amazing job on the cage. You can see how tight everything fits all around. Quality work, everything fits great. The back seats still probably accessible, but I can put tires in it, so works out really well for me. Seat brackets on the driver's side. This is an Evo and the QRTR. I made a video a bit before. The QRTR, I think both of these are the planted base plates, but the side mount brackets on this one is from Sparco and Committed Service brand on the other side. Much cheaper to go with Committed Service brand. Highly recommend it. And also, if you're wondering, that's an Arduino up there that reads out all my OBD2 stuff and will run the cluster for the LS swap, but that's neither here nor there. Anyway, moving on. Interesting feature here is I still have a factory style shift knob, but if you look underneath it, it's actually an NGW short shifter. So I kind of fabricated to fit in. It's not great, but it works. I like trying to keep the OEM factory look, if you couldn't tell. Oh, speaking of which, I got a couple people asking me about fitting these. These are the 9-inch wide M3 wheels. I did something kind of janky, and I just cut out and rolled the fender a little bit, but I'm still hitting on the inside there. It's a little bit too low, but basically that's how you can get around and run M3 wheels in the back. Let's see. Let's move on to, I guess, swap specific stuff. Basically what most people want to see. My particular flavor of LS is an LS2 with probably about 70,000 miles on it now. It's a full dropout from an 06 GTO, and I accidentally ran it without oil this weekend because the oil filter exploded. Long story, don't really want to get into it right now. But it's pure GTO drive-by-wire, factory motor, put down 396 wheel and 405 torque, something like that. So it's still running the factory harness that was originally modified by Siki to run with the E30, and then I wired it specifically to run an E46. So I've got, pardon the crappy wiring, but a bunch of stuff over there for things like that. But also the DME side of things, I have a couple things wired in so that the LS harness talks properly with the E46 stuff. And then I leave the E46 DME in here to serve a couple of different purposes, OBD2 outputs, body modules, things like that. But I don't keep any of the wheel speed sensors hooked up. I can't really, that's too dark on. I actually keep the wheel speed sensors physically there so it doesn't throw codes. But the ABS is disabled for, well, obviously. Let's see what else we got. Factory booster's still in there with the factory master cylinder, still the 330 stuff. I'm running a Phoenix adjustable fuel pressure regulator, a Wellbro 255 fuel pump. I would eventually like to run a returnless system because I don't really like having all these lines running way back behind the valve cover. Everything gets really hot. Let's see, this is the Mishimoto 3-inch, I believe it's a dual pass radiator made specifically for LS swaps. So it's got the upper and lower hoses. This was fit, the factory radiator is supposed to actually fit underneath here. It didn't quite work because the radiator is really thick and I had to cut out this section here. So the back of the radiator bolts to this aluminum core support, and this is actually a factory fan mounted upside down, but also I've got a separate pusher fan. So this is probably about, I think this is a 2000 CFM pusher, and I think the factory fan is about a 3000 CFM puller. So that should be running a lot of good shrouded fanness. Let's see, that is the overflow for the radiator. I've got a catch can that goes from here and then plumps back in the intake that way. This is a 1x1 bar that I just kind of bolted in between the headlights. It carries the power steering cooler and the oil cooler. So these lines actually run behind into a remote oil filter. Let me see if I can get a light on that. So that's oil filter relocation that goes underneath everything and supplies oil when it works. Not the best welding job, but it's a bolt-in, bolt-out radiator core support because the factory didn't really have that. Let me think. So general power steering cooler works. The motor mounts were done by John at Committed Service Brand. They were a one-off, but he's working on a kit right now. These are also off-the-shelf shorty headers that John modified to a 3-inch down, which was a huge freaking pain to weld up the exhaust, which I don't know if you can see all of that, but my amateur welderness did a dual 3-inch with high flow cats into a single 1-inch all the way back with a MagnaFlow muffler on it, just the generic stuff. Sounds pretty good. probably quieter than what a lot of people want, but that's okay. Otherwise, issues with a lot of this, which I'm not sure if you can really see down in there, but the steering rack has to go through the headers, which is a pain, and also the factory brake lines ran through that area as well. So I actually re-ran the brake lines behind the valve cover so that I wouldn't burn those up because they were getting really close to the headers. But on top of that, I'm also running the factory heater core valve. You can kind of see back there. So that I can maintain the heater core, which then goes back to the regular heater unit. I am planning on putting air conditioning back in this thing one day, but we'll work on that. PCM's mounted underneath this little panel right here. Yeah, I know, it's terrible wiring. It's safe, believe me, I think. What else? I mean, I think that's about it. Transmission's a 6-speed T56, custom drive shaft with the M3 6-bolt rear. Again, transmission mounts done by John at Committed Service Brand. I think I got everything. And then we can get into what blew up. So what happened at the track was, I don't know if you can see the oil filter, but I was using a no-name brand oil filter, and either the threads backed out or the O-ring just popped, and first corner at the track it just let go and all my oil went out. And my dumb butt, not having a oil pressure gauge, didn't notice that I was out of oil until I started hearing it knocking at the end of the run. Parked it, got lots of glitter oil, which I still have that. All that fun glitter goodness. Don't know if you can see that, but woo! Doesn't look too bad from here, but trust me, it's a lot of glitter. Otherwise, I try to keep the body as stock as possible. I do like a good sleeper look. I maintain as much of the interior as possible so it looks like a regular car, so that when I get pulled over, the cops don't think too much until they see the roll cage and the 6-point or 5-point harness. Let's see. If I forgot anything, let me know down in the comments. The wiring, I know lots of people have questions about, but I'm not going to have a huge amount of specifics. The VATS was deleted from it, and I wired the starter, PCM power, and some grounds, and that was really about it. I have my wiring diagram, but I highly doubt it would help anybody else. Yeah. Otherwise, hopefully I can start making some more videos soon. I'm hoping. I'm pretty sure I'm done having kids at this point, so that might make things a little bit easier. Alright, thanks everybody. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.